2024 Flathead Reservation Water Management Board meeting. We will start with an opening prayer as usual. Georgia,
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we just want to thank you for the day that you have given us today. We ask that as we move into today's meeting, we do so with humility and with discretion, that we can go through this agenda and serve our community well. But we also want to take a moment and lift up those who are emergency responders dealing in these cold temperatures. And we also want to lift up especially the family of Dr. Joe McDonald, whose life has really affected so many here on the reservation and in such a good way. And we just ask that you be with them as they're mourning his loss. And we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, you may be doing me a favor, but I am not on video. It's okay. You don't have to. I just as soon stay off video, but I just wanted to make sure you knew.
Yeah, I think panelists are not going to be allowed to display the video. I could fix that, but
No, don't. Fine, I'm good with it.
What we're hearing is that there's a technical glitch with that anyway, so all the Haley and Shane are not going to be on video either. So I guess we'll just go with verbal, if that's all right.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I guess, James, would you like to do attendance?
sure. George, please.
Here?
Roger, no.
Yes.
Rick Jansen. Here. Ken Pitt.
Here.
And Shane Hendrickson.
Here.
Good.
Okay, and I guess just let the record show that Clayton is absent today. Okay, with that, I guess need to announce that the meeting minutes are on the Flathead Reservation website. They're also posted on the DNRC and the CSKT websites for anyone who would like to review those. So, all right, potential conflicts of interest. Georgia?
No?
Rich?
No.
Ken?
No.
And I don't have any conflicts of interest myself. So with that, I guess we need to adopt the agenda that's in front of us. Does anybody have any revisions, modifications, exceptions? I would take a motion to then adopt the agenda as presented.
I move that we adopt the January 11th agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the January 16th agenda as provided. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, general consensus. All right, with that, we move on to public comment. Is there any public comment for items that are not included on the agenda? And there's nobody in the audience here. If there's anybody online.
There is a public comment.
Okay, if you could state your name and address for the record, we will allow you to provide public comment. I think we have a little technical problem. There's
Maybe
a
ask her to
Disconnected.
Jacob, if that's you, can you send me an email? Maybe we could call you in. Something about your audio is not working. You sound like drowning mouse.
It should work.
Okay.
Usually if he disconnects and reconnects, it should fix it.
Okay. Yeah, we're having an audio problem.
Can you disconnect, then reconnect?
No, it's not working yet. Still sound like Elvin.
I thought we were getting pranked.
Can you disconnect and then reconnect to the meeting? It should fix it.
Yeah, okay, so it is Jacob, he just emailed me. Sign out all the way, yeah, all right.
Is he gonna come back on? Sign back in. Should we just, if he comes back on, we'll let him provide public comment. All right, so we'll move on to item number 3, board business. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the January 11th, 2024 meeting. Everybody wants to take a minute, review those.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that we adopt and accept the Thursday, January 11th draft meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and been seconded to draft the minutes from the January 11th meeting. Any comment? Okay, I hear no comment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I see Jacob's back. Do we want to let him see it again?
He's still muted.
Jacob, would you still like to provide public comment?
Yeah, can you hear me any better?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for the second chance. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the December meeting. Is that appropriate or should I wait and do that later?
I guess you can, that's not on the agenda, so this is an item that's the time to talk about it if you'd like to, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the points kind of relate to, I think, what you're going to talk about today, but I'd taken some notes from about a month ago and hopefully what I say will make sense. So what what I do is I help people. I have a business where I help people obtain government approvals, both on the county, the state level, and the tribal level. And one of the things that I help with is division of land, DEQ review, where we need to get comment regarding water availability and water rights. So that's how I've worked with James and Ethan. They've been a lot of help, and I appreciate them very much. So my first thing I wanted to talk about is obtaining off of the reservation what we know is a predetermination. And my question that I'll just throw out there, I'm not expecting an answer, but will there be a process for a predetermination through this board or this office rather than applying for a well permit that has an expiration date and isn't always exactly what we need? We just need a comment saying whether or not the property qualifies for the use that's being proposed. So that's one thought question that I had based on last month's meeting. Another one that was talked about had to do with staying under the 10 acre feet per year. A project came to mind that I'm working on. It's an 8-lot subdivision. Is there a minimum allowance that's allowed per lot or per residence? For example, to meet the 10 acre feet on an 8-lot subdivision, that would be 1.25 acre feet per year. Would that be acceptable to meet that annual limitation, as long as we could stay under the allowed flow as well? Another thing that came up previously was requiring comment from FRWMB if irrigation waters from the project were going to be used for lawn and garden, which, I think that makes sense. I'm working with a project where they have irrigation water from a drainage that's not part of the project. Is that allowed to be used also for lawn and garden? And would there be any specific requirements for that? So that was another thing that was came to mind. And I think my final question for this period, when we talk 10 acre feet per year, is that associated with a single well, a single property, or a development? I have another project in mind where it's a 20 acre piece. It's a 5-phase subdivision into small lots that are used for RVs. There's a well there already that provides water to the first phase, but to get to the second and third phases, another well is needed. So trying to figure out the process to get that done. So thank you again for the time and for all your work on this. Those are the main things I had on my mind. Thank you.
Just for the record, could you state your name and address?
Yes, my legal name is Jacob Weissner, and I am here at 1 7th Avenue East, Suite 202 in Polson, Montana.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment?
If anyone online would like to make a comment, and raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak. No public comment.
Okay, thank you. Wrap that up, or I guess we are on to item 3.2, the health insurance stuff. Okay, so guess I have a little dog and pony show. So Ken and I have been working on this, and I've got some handouts, and I've got it on electronically too. James will bring it up, so I can follow either way.
Yep. You want to start with,
For me,
which one of these?
the insurance summary. Okay, so with that, I guess we'll call this Health Insurance 101. And wanted to preface, we've been wanting to move ahead with health insurance for employees, and it's a way to start with, so to educate everybody on the basic coverage items and regulations and rules and whatnot. So the first item is the basic coverage. So actually, according to the Affordable Care Act, if a business has less than 50 employees, we are not required to offer health insurance. So that's, but then there's a caveat to that. So, and if we do offer coverage, it's generally, we only have to offer it to full-time employees. We don't have to offer it to part-time employees, but we can. And a full-time employee, as we've already defined, is a person who works 30 hours or more per week. So as I mentioned, and you know, it is optional, but there's no requirement to offer health insurance to part-time employees. So if you want to scroll up a little bit. So I had some other further questions and I contacted Haley and BKBH. So Haley clarified a couple of things for me about mandates under the Affordable Care Act. That really, for as far as offering health coverage, it's under the Social Security Act that we are considered a government instrumentality. So we are required to provide health insurance to employees.
Okay.
So that's where that comes from. And the health coverage can be anything we want. We can have HSA, which is a health savings account, FSA. I forget what that acronym is exactly.
Flexible saving.
Flexible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, flexible savings account. And then there is no requirement to provide dependent coverage within the ACA. It's strictly for the employee. And then I don't know how this will affect us, but if we do provide health insurance as a small business under 50 employees, then we are subject to, if we don't, we're subject to penalties under the ACA, but we are also then can come, I guess it'll come up next, we can get some tax credits for it. So we'll go on to the next one. So here's a little more information. Under this, we would be considered a small group plan because we're less than 50 employees. That's as low a coverage as it can get. And the bottom line, as far as coverage goes, that the employer has to provide 50% of each individual each individual employee's premium. And that can, you know, that varies according to the type of plan we decide to accept. So then like I say, if we do that, then we can get some tax credits as a small business. But since we're a governmental instrumentality, I guess our accountant would have to explain how that would work. All right, so in doing this, we wanted to be pretty thorough. So we solicited coverage from 3 different underwriters. One of them, Grant Schwab and Associates, is so I knew the head of the Allegiant down in Missoula, and I asked him about small businesses, and so he referred me to Grant Schwab and Associates. They're based in Shelby with a satellite office in Helena. There's 3 different providers, as we'll find out. There's the Montana Health Cooperative, Pacific Source, and also Blue Cross Blue Shield. But BSA, for some reason, really pushed and stressed of the Montana Health Co-op. And both, I think Ethan would concur that the Montana Health Co-op is a very limited network and doesn't have as many doctors or anything, and it's mainly limited to larger cities like Missoula and Helena and whatnot. So overall, that just didn't seem like a good fit. The second one, I've had 3 or 4 meetings with Adele Vincent, Patel Insurance here in Ronan. Adele was very informative. She's an underwriter for both Pacific Source and Blue Cross Blue Shield. She's a pretty small business. And the one thing I found out with Adele, she probably doesn't have access to some things as much as a larger one does as far as providing information. And then the third one I contacted, which is Marsh McClellan, there's Kalispell, they're formerly the Payne West. Payne West is nationwide. They're a large firm, but they, she was very informative and very helpful. And I have some additional information from them, but they can underwrite any of those three options. Judy Sharp is the contact there. She writes a lot of small business. She's the handler of small business for that office. And she told me that Pacific Source is a great company as far as client support goes. So, but most all of our quotes were from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So as I mentioned, Montana Health Cooperative is pretty small. We kind of, for all those reasons that I mentioned previously, we kind of discarded this one. It just didn't seem as good a fit with this coverage. And then Blue Pacific Source, they are primarily limited to the Pacific Northwest, Montana, Idaho, Washington, maybe Oregon. So if you travel beyond those states, then there may be issues with coverage. Whereas Blue Cross Blue Shield is nationwide and has a much more extensive network. So for that reason, for the most part, we went over it down to Blue Cross Blue Shield because they seem to be the best provider. Okay, so just in general, these are the 8 primary items you kind of review when you're looking at health insurance, and I'll get into more of that in a minute. And then from that, you select a plan. But the big thing to keep in mind on this is that everyone's needs are different, you know? And so there's no shoe that's going to fit all sizes. We have to select one or two that are most applicable to what our needs are. Okay. So like I said, there's a myriad of different options out there. When I first had Judy run me some options, she ran me everything from platinum coverage to bronze coverage. And there are literally tens, if not hundreds of different plans out there that you can select from. The big thing is cost. And there's 2 main types of coverage. One is the traditional coverage in which the flex plan is available. And the second is it's called high deductible, high payment, I think. I forget what that acronym is exactly, but then that's the one that includes HSA. And so that's your 2 options, really. You even go, one of those 2. We discussed previously the benefits and drawbacks of both FSAs and HSAs. The 2 main things that correlate in there is the deductible decreases, your premium increases. And as out-of-pocket costs decrease, the premium increases. Okay, James. So the other coverage that we want to probably consider too, in addition to health, is dental. There's vision, and there's 2 basic providers for those 2. There's pros and cons with both of those. And I'll get into more detail. And then short-term disability, possibly, and life insurance. And what I was told by both Adele and Judy, for the most part, is life insurance. Generally, the upper limit is $50,000. So I asked also about fees. And so, for instance, Mark McClellan told me that they had no setup fees or administrative fees when I met with them. I sent them an email to verify that. And they said they can offer 2 or possibly 3 plans depending upon, so it's really dependent upon the number of employees that you have, but it's also our discretion to decide how many plans we want to offer. The tail insurance, there would be a $250 to $500 initial setup fee with $50 per month for the employer for administrative costs. So, and Adele was kind of indicating it'd be best just to select one plan. So finally, let's roll it. A little bit more on just the financial commitment by the board. As I mentioned initially, the minimum that we would have to pay is 50% of the lowest tier plan. And it goes up from there. Most businesses offer employee only coverage, is what I was also told. Other businesses that I'm aware of, that in consulting firms, for instance, they'll provide a stipend. And that stipend would range from $500 to $850. And then the employee can decide how they want to administer that stipend. If they want to put it all, well, in addition to covering their plan, they want to put it into an HSA because their wife has insurance through her employer, or if they want to use it to cover partially their spouse or their children, and however, then that's the employee's decision. And higher levels of commitment are discretionary. So that's deciding if we want to go beyond the employee only type thing. We've been very liberal so far in our benefits that we have been offering, and we still don't. I guess we still need a budget to see where we're shaking out on some of this stuff. So I think that's yet up for further discussion. So with that, then I have some additional handouts. Here you go, Georgia. Okay, so if you want to go to the top one. It's I need to run through even. So can you enlarge that any?
Sorry, what's that?
I need one too. Thanks.
On your cops.
Okay. So if you can maybe get to where we can see all 5 columns, that would be great. That's pretty good. Okay, yep. Okay, so on this, on the far left column is the employee plus spouse, employee plus children, employee plus family. Those are the options. And then the benefits are the 8 items that I talked about initially. So, but to start at the top, what we've got is 2 gold plans. So one is the gold, which is a traditional plan with an FSA. The next one is the gold plan with an HSA. And so then these are actually 2024 costs as of January 1st. So one of the reasons for not having this done until today was that none of the providers got me this information. I got this from Judy on Friday. And so anyway, then we can look and see then what the actual costs are. The 4th and 5th columns are silver plan options, so that's down a tier. And the same thing, it's traditional, and then the HDHP with the HSA. So as you can see, for the employees, you go across for it's nearly $600 if you go with the gold traditional for both the gold plans, and then it drops $100 for the silver plans. But then that gets reflected down below when you start looking at the deductibles. So if we go down and look at deductible under the traditional, it's $1,500 for it's right in the middle there for the employee, and $30,000 for the family. If you go with the HSA, it's $3,200 for the individual, and then it just goes higher because you're paying less money. So you pay for what you get. The same with kind of the copay is interesting in that the HSA pays 100%, whereas the traditional only pays 80% and 20% out of pocket. And I think the HSA is, has some benefits in that respect. So out of pocket maximums for the year, then you can see the traditional is higher than the HSA plan. So there's, some interesting caveats there. Then if you scroll down a little farther, these are the other types of coverage included in each of these different plans. And how they pay for drug coverage also. So based on my conversations with both Adele and Judy, they said it's the best to go with like either the gold or the silver plans, but include both the traditional and the HSA so that people can select what they would want to select. So I'll leave you that, then I'll go on to the dental and the vision.
Thank you.
My arms were a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned initially, there's two types of, I guess, Blue Cross Blue Shield has two dental plans. It's called Delta Dental. And this is kind of the breakdown of those. There's, again, it's a matter of what the premium is versus what the coverage is for the most part. So the premiums really aren't much different. So the one is 41.41 for the employee, and the other is 45.46 for the employee. Now, what I found is that dental plans and the vision plans are pretty minimal costs. Along with the life insurance is nominal for the most part. And again, the vision plan, Blue Cross Blue Shield has one, and then Delta Vision is the other one. And I think I was told that Delta Vision is a little better. I think I've had the Blue Cross Blue Shield under VSP, and it's a pretty limited provider network. If you want to, you can use it, but you have to apply for it. The vision clinic's not going to apply for you. So you just pay at the counter. And I don't know why. There's a lot of opticians that are going away from VSP plan. So anyway, like I say, the premiums for vision and dental are relatively low. So it's just a matter of deciding probably what the better provider is. Or who the better provider is. So with that, I have one other thing. This is kind of proprietary, so I'm going to ask for these back. So I'll give you these and then you can.
Yeah, sorry, I got lost in comparison with the.
So if we were to, this is a company that gives their employees that $850 a year or a month, $850 a month. And a summary then, and Payne West will provide the same packet of information that'll be tailored relative to what we select, So this is just an example. And so for instance, on this one, The company gives out $850. So these are the different deductibles. So the one on the right side is the HSA network, and the one on, or the left side is the HSA, and the one on the right side is the traditional one. This is through Blue Cross Blue Shield, so you can see how all of that works. I guess for me, I always was favorable to using an HSA because it's just like a bank, a pre-tax bank account. So, and it goes on even after you have terminated your employment. So it kind of describes what virtual urgent care is covered and things. It talks about, page 2 talks about the health savings account and how it works, and also about the flex spending account. Page 3 is a little bit on life insurance. In this case, they were limited to $10,000 instead of $50,000. There was also some long-term disability coverage included, and these kind of things are really nominal costs to the employer, you know, but are good things to have. So, and then page 5 is just a brief description of the dental benefits and the vision benefits. And I think these are all through Blue Cross Blue Shield, but as you can see, that one for the vision is VSP, I guess. Personally, I didn't like VSP, so I think we would need to reevaluate that. And then finally, there's some additional information on life insurance coverage on the 6th page, but page 2 is page 3. Page 1, I'm sorry, page 2. The very first page is the one that, you know, you draw your eye to. So in this case, this company selected a traditional plan that had a deductible for the individual, max deductible of $3,500. And then you can go on down. Co-insurance was 100%. Entire family deductible is $7,000. And then on the other side, you can see that then the HSA was 80/20. There's some co-pays for various things, depending upon, but that's what the HSA is for too. So, and then a little bit on drug benefits. So I just included this as an example of what the provider would give us as a employer to provide to the employees, so they have a better, simple understanding of what's covered. So I guess where we're at is we need to decide how we want to proceed from here. If we want to select some options, we want to select limits on what we want to cover, how much we want to contribute, and go from there. I was going to meet with Clayton at some time and go over all of this too and get his thoughts on it, but anyway, this is what I've got for today. So.
Well, thank you, Roger and Ken. This was a lot of work to put together, so appreciate that.
Could I make a comment? When you say Roger and Ken, you really mean Roger. He did by far the lion's share of the work on this.
Wow.
I had good support though, good moral support.
Well, I guess my thought, Roger, is from what you said before, we need to have a better idea about the budget, right? Before we know what we can do, and I'm sure employees would like to have a chance to look at this to kind of see what some options are too. I think I need time to study it. You gave a very thorough presentation, but I need to just sit and stare at it and stare at the budget,
Yeah, I
I
get
think,
it.
in order to compare, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I know when we get these every year at SKC, I have to take them home and just
Yeah.
ruminate. It's like playing Battleship, so. It's not my first vocabulary, medical terms.
Oh, I learned a mess in this.
Oh, I bet.
So then I just tried to distill it down.
It's a lot, but this you need back.
I need that back.
That you need back. Okay, I'll put that over there.
I said I need it back now. It's not- I know it, so I know it's not going anywhere.
I have a question. And maybe I should know this, being on the board the last month. I mean, how do we look in terms of the budget for the rest of the year? Considering, like, let's say we pick a very good option for the employees.
Sure,
I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, Ethan, because, but I know we've been talking about this, seems like every meeting since I've been on this board. You know. And my thought is with the small staff, and I know it's gonna grow. I'm always one that feels that we need to take care of employees if you want to keep them.
It's true.
You know, and this is a benefit, a fringe benefit that, you know, is important for employees and their families. You know, similar to what I get at a tribal government, you know, and I don't know how it worked in the private sector. But I know how it works at the college or the tribal government or county government or even the federal government,
Mhm.
you know. They provide that option. And I knowing this group is smaller, and I appreciate what Roger showed us, because I didn't know a lot of those facts.
Yeah.
You know, and I work for a government that has 1,500 employees, so they have to offer something. And I take advantage, I do.
Sure.
So that's my question and comment, sorry, Roger.
No, and I think those are really appropriate in that,
Mhm.
we've always tried to, offer very enticing benefits, I think, and we offer better, most paid holidays of any entity, more than the tribe, more than the state, more than the feds.
We offer quite a few.
Yeah, I know. And so we're trying to be very employee oriented. We also we attempted to get health coverage through the tribal network, but we couldn't do that. Same with the state, we couldn't do that. And so because we are what we are, we have to go out on the open market, you know? And the open market is then going to a small business designation. And that's our only option, unless the other option is just to go, let everybody go buy their own health coverage on the healthcare.gov, you know, so which is not a good option.
No,
So, so this is the best option that we have. And we can tailor it how we want to also.
and I appreciate all the hard work you put into this. This is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Something I couldn't have done. It's almost like an HR professional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to go back to my question, if we were to offer, you know, just going through everything, I was looking at Payne West. You know, and most people, I'm thinking, would eventually get to employee and children. I mean, depends if your spouse is already working and has health insurance, but I don't know that. Now to pay upwards of $850 a month, you know, is typically what I get, you know, the tribe pays like 75–80% of what I pay the rest.
Well, and I guess the reason that I liked giving everybody a certain stipend was because then there was no, discrimination, no preference, everybody got the same thing. It didn't matter if you had 1 kid or 12 kids, didn't matter if you were married or not.
Yeah.
You get to decide how you want to use that.
Right.
So,
It's a good point.
But if you could answer today, what do you think?
Well, some of it is terrible to do, but it depends. And it depends on what salary thresholds we select in the hiring of the next 2 positions. Depends on whether or not family coverage is offered and involved. Comes in looking for family coverage. But generally, I would say that, you know, even at the highest minimum, you know, our budget accommodates it. That's some stuff over there. But if we were to get lucky and hire the upper expert levels for the next 2 positions, people look at tasking state and tribes probably the opposite. Our budget, we would start needing to rely on the interest that we're making, the money market, and application fees.
but I think we need to have our budget now so that we can, and the amount of money that we make on the money market is pretty trivial compared to the overall. We need to have that detailed budget line item out so that we can then plug all this stuff in and see. But I mean, I know that my gut tells me that we could offer a stipend so that we could get something good, you know, if that's what we want to do. So that, and then we can always monitor. We don't have to. One of the things that came up before was that their folder was going to run out. I don't know where that is at or not, but so that's why I'm thinking we could at least do something if we wanted to today or the next meeting. If we
Okay.
want to wait.
No, I see where you're going now. I
yeah,
get you.
so that there would be coming.
I don't want to kick the can too far down the road, even
No.
the plate's not here, but we can do something today to get it moving.
And we've been kicking the can. I mean, I started this back in September and then it got delayed. Whenever all the providers said, we don't want to do anything until we get our 2024 rates, you know, so then finally got those. We're at the point where we at least have some real numbers to do.
Gotcha. Thank you for that extra clarification. I guess I needed that extra detail.
Well, I had kind of forgot about it. I mean, the first that
Thanks, Rich. Needed that. So Roger, what kind of stipend are you thinking? The 850? Is that a good starting point?
Yeah, and
for
what we're doing
discussion?
right now is, if you remember, I think with these 2 positions that are being advertised, we're saying we'll give them $700 stipend for how Shelby's going to come on.
Okay.
You know, if we decide to go with 850, which to me was the upper limit, private enterprise. So, I guess that's, you know, to me, seemed the starting point.
And with interviews on the horizon, that makes it nice to be able to answer a candidate's question during an interview in terms of what benefits are we providing, health benefits.
Yeah.
To be able to say we have a stipend of this amount.
Yeah, and
That's
if
helpful.
we did, we could then get one of these providers under contract and get this going.
And then lock it in. Gotcha. And our budget? I'm not the numbers person. Our budget could withstand the 850 a month.
Easily.
Yeah.
Numbers that we projected for the health insurance.
Were they? Okay.
And
just to be clear though, I did do some additional research based on the board's desire to have a stipend. If we offer a stipend, it is really a taxable cash amount. So currently, the only way that we have things set up on as a health reimbursement, which is a tax deferred or non-taxable amount, is if an employee provides a receipt for health insurance paid. Foregoing, it's just a straight up stipend. And it's basically just cash.
Gotcha.
It's money that you get taxed on. And that's from an account. And trying to figure out how to set up a $700 stipend, which is different than what any of the existing employees are doing.
And that may be for just doing it that way, but I think once you enter into a contract in it, I know when my health insurance was never taxed. It was a side benefit, so, that HSA money came out tax free. So I think there's maybe some thing going on that it's just a stipend, but I think if you enter into with a provider, then I don't think you should get taxed. But I'll follow up on that too. So anyway, that's yeah, I guess we can wait, we can make a decision and whatever.
Well, I just want to make sure I'm following. So if we made a motion today, for instance, to have a stipend for employees for your health coverage, you're saying, Ethan, it would need to have a qualifier, so it wouldn't be taxed. So for instance, would we have to qualify that motion in some way, or?
I think what we would do is we would go with one of the two providers, either Altel or Painwest, and get them under contract. And then get the plans. But the plans would be based, so we would need to, decide too, do we want to go with the gold plan, the silver plan? My research from everybody says pick a traditional plan and pick an HSA plan so that the employees can decide themselves what they want. They want a flexible plan and they want to have lower deductible, then they can go with that. They want to have a higher deductible and go with the HSA, they can have that. Then the employee has some selection or some decisions made too.
So instead of making a decision on a stipend, we should make a decision on a plan today?
Well, both actually.
Okay. Sorry if I keep asking the same
No,
question
they're
twice.
Good questions. I mean, that's why we're here. It's
This is
So,
Ken, can you hear
figure
me?
this all out.
Oh, Kim's trying to talk.
Go ahead, Ken.
So the Zoom meeting dumped me, and the last thing I heard was I think George asked Ethan, can our budget afford $850 stipend? And then I lost Joe and I just got back on. So number one, what was his answer to that question? And did I miss anything in the last 5 minutes?
The answer to that was our budget can accommodate an $850
Okay.
stipend. We then had some discussion relative to if we should act on this today. I think, did you hear the discussion about the potential for the current Cobras to expire? And that was kind of some of the impetus to make things happen sooner than later.
Okay. I did not hear it, but I understand.
Yeah. And then we discussed, okay, what are our decisions today? Do we want to select plans? Do we want to select a stipend? Do we want to select a contractor? And how do we want to proceed from here?
Okay.
Would you tolerate a couple of questions? Mr.
Sure.
Vice Chairman?
If I can answer.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, and yeah, I'm not, not sure yet it's totally my answer. Under, bullet 1 on the first page of the presentation, the further health insurance classification. It says, while there's no provision from the ACA that mandates health coverage, there is a provision under the Social Security Act that states that an employer is part of the public retirement system. Depicted as a political subdivision or instrumentality for the purposes of retirement, then you are required to provide health insurance. Does the stipend that you are discussing accommodate that requirement, or is that different?
Well, Haley, are you available?
Yeah, so can you rephrase the question?
So Haley, that's a good question too. So we're on item 2 under further health insurance certification clarification. About bullet 1. Yeah, I didn't quite follow your question either.
Okay, so does stipend accommodate whatever the requirement is that's set forth in bullet 1?
Oh, so you mean if the board were to give their employees some set stipend for the time being rather than like an actual health plan? That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, that would.
Thank you, but that's not really what we're proposing to do here. What we're proposing to do is to select up 2 plans. And then that would be the coverage we offer. And then we would fund that up to $850. And the employee could decide how they want to distribute that money among their needs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It took me 3 times to actually get it. Just
Yeah.
full disclosure.
Well,
Yeah.
this is too important. I mean, we
Yeah.
gotta know what we're talking about or
Yeah,
making emotional.
okay, so then, based on your analysis, Roger, it looks as if the Payne West offered up the 2 best plans. So a motion today to offer the gold or the gold plus the HSA would be what we could offer the staff with the coverage up to $850 a month. And then anything beyond that, they would elect out of pocket. Am I tracking?
Right, you're tracking.
Yay, I'm with you guys now. Okay, so,
So the best example of that is if we went with the option 1 on that sheet, and it's $795. I can't see that right now. For the employee only, that would leave them then $255 to use elsewhere. If their wife is working and covered under another plan, then they could dump that money into, well, then some of that would also go to paying the dental
mhm,
and the
vision,
vision. And then the remainder would either go into the flex, or if they went with the HDHP, then to the HSA
gotcha.
account.
Well, then I'm very comfortable making a motion today then.
Well, before you do,
Okay, yes,
oh,
Ken?
wait, before you do, Roger, I thought you said Judy recommended the gold and the silver with the FSA. Maybe I misunderstood you.
Yes, I did. I don't remember.
Okay, then never mind. Go ahead, Georgia.
I guess I like the 2 golds because they were covered the most, you know.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and it was the best coverage is why I was kind of going with the 2 golds.
Okay,
Because then consistent with that other one, you have the option of an FSA or an HS.
Okay,
Gotcha.
no, go ahead, Georgia.
Oh,
And
okay.
so just also to understand, so if you had an employee and a family on a plan with gold, if that was the route that would, then, you know, the board would be paying $850 and then the employee would be responsible for around 12,000, the remainder a year, right? $1,000 a month, ballpark.
If you're gonna include your spouse and family, I guess, or whatever, yeah.
Then you wouldn't pay 12,000, you would pay like. The employer would pay $850,
Yeah, 1,000, you know,
but then
Yeah.
the employee would pay like $250,
So like, yeah, so like on that top one.
that's per month.
Right, that's right, so it would be closer to, if you went with that employee and spouse. And we covered $850, then there'd be about a $350 balance.
I mean, that's typically how it works, that's what it works in mine, right? I get paid twice a month, so it's a little easier, I guess.
I'm sorry for my ignorance here. So, the employee plus on this bid sheet. Are we talking about option one is one of the options?
And option two.
We are,
Okay.
yeah,
So on option one, up at the top. There's employee plus spouse, employee plus children, employee plus family. And so these are monthly amounts. The total cost, right?
correct,
Okay, so if an employee plus family was covered, total cost is $1,843. Then you subtract the $850 from that would be $993, right?
right.
Okay.
I guess before we make a motion, my other question is why couldn't we offer all four
All four one.
options?
Oh, well, it can, well,
Good question.
it's based on the number of employees.
Oh, huh.
So we have to limit our options.
Yes, so if we
Interesting.
have three, and then maybe this, Ken, is where your question arose also, now that I think about it. Is so if we had three employees, we can offer three packages, three different options. But. And for some reason, Adele only told me she could offer only one option, I don't know why, but. But yeah, so then maybe that would bring in one of the silver packages in addition to the gold packages, so that, with Christie, then we have three employees.
Okay.
But to me, the thing is. It gives you more options, but. The two gold plans are the best plans. And so just to make it simple and. Maybe one, you can either go with the HSA or the FSA. Then that makes the choice of
How many employees do we have now?
three.
Just three, but if we hire two more, that means next year we could revisit
We
this
can revisit.
and there would be
something.
more options,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Correct. And you can change
Okay,
your
now I
options.
got it.
Yeah.
Insurance
Oh,
is hard.
Hey, I've had 6 meetings on this.
Same. I tell you, I
Thank you.
so appreciate you. This is painful.
Heck, yeah. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion that we offer our employees health insurance through Payne West through option one and option two. Is it sufficient to just name them that way?
Mhm.
With an amount up to $850 a month.
Second.
Okay.
So I guess what I would like the motion to also is then I could go back and meet with Payne West on getting this structured, I guess, too.
So I'll amend my motion to include an opportunity for Roger to go back and structure these health insurance contracts.
Okay.
Okay.
I can withdraw my second and then re-second.
Wow, this is huge. This is a big day. Health insurance for employees. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah,
Wow.
Thank you, Roger.
and like I say, we can revisit this. This isn't cast fully in stone.
This is for today. This is for this
today.
year.
This is so we can get something going, yeah.
Yeah.
Public comment?
Yeah, yes, okay, so we have a motion on the floor for the vice chairman to meet with Payne West and contract option 1 and option 2 as provided today. Is there any public comment? Public comment in the audience? Any public comment online?
Not seeing any public comment online.
Okay, there appears to be no public comment. I guess we'll take a roll call vote on this. So,
Okay, so it's me,
Yes.
Roger Noble,
yes,
Rich Jensen,
Yes.
Ken Pitt.
Yes.
okay, thanks. So we will proceed with getting some health insurance. All right. Next item on the agenda is 3.3, consider 2023 board evaluation, I guess. What is that?
Sure, as vice chairman, board members, it's common for boards to do a evaluation of how they've done over the course of the year, and I thought you might want to determine whether you'd like to embark on that, some kind of an exercise on that, for one of the next meetings. And, just thought it'd be something for you to consider. If you'd like to, we can help you figure out, whatever metrics you want to, or not.
Did anybody have any comment on that or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I
Yeah, as
do.
an educator. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Go
Ken.
ahead, yeah.
Wonder just what the actual purpose of it would be.
Board member Pitt, board members, the purpose is typically to see if there's ways to improve efficiency, effectiveness, to take a moment to count the wins of the previous year, to take a moment and maybe determine if there's gaps that need to be addressed, what the priority gaps would be. Take a moment to, list off what's working well and to ensure that that's maintained. Oftentimes it comes with some sort of a report that helps to document the board efficacy and achievements, and punch list for things that need to get done.
Would this be a public process or just done by the board, or just explain the mechanics to me?
The mechanics would be, you need to do it as a public process. The mechanics would be that the board members would, say, yeah, we'd like to engage into an evaluation project. Then maybe just make a list of things that you might need to support that. But generally, the leadership on what the mechanics look like come from the board itself. Can make suggestions or show examples, but don't want to, impose or engage in that if there's not any desire to do so.
Thank you.
I have a thought.
Sure.
Well, as an educator, I love assessment. And my favorite question is always, how do we measure success, right? How do we know we're being successful? And I think, when I'm off this board, there's gonna be a new person sitting in my chair, and I think they're gonna have the same question. How do we know we're being successful? And this might be a tool, perhaps, to help define that. I don't know. I'd love to hear what everybody else's viewpoints are.
I guess, my thought is, all the boards I've served on, I've never had a board review.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Never had that done.
I've heard of boards having retreats so that they can then go meet among themselves and develop maybe a different procedures or processes for how they run the meetings or what they do, or what, you know, maybe they
Okay.
prioritize what their tasks are
Okay.
or something like that. So I guess my thought would be, I'm kind of on the same vein as Ken, as I think I need to know what really are we trying to accomplish by doing that? You know, our role is oversight and guidance, you know, and that's where that, you know, retreat would come in, is to figure out how we want to keep this ship moving along. But I guess I would need to know more about the process, the evaluation process, and what it's going to accomplish before I go down that route.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I kind of agree with Roger. I'd just like to think about it some more, know more about what we're actually doing, and is it really a good use of our time? Those kind of things.
Yeah, and, you know, we have a lot on our plate right now, so. So I guess, Ethan, if you want to give us a succinct summary at the next meeting of what the evaluation process would entail, we could consider it at that time. Does that sound all right? All right, consider 2024 board training needs.
Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, would you like to?
Hold on a second.
Okay,
I think he's talking to somebody else. Apologies. All right, I'll carry on. Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, this would be a good time to let me know if you had any training needs. The one that always comes up is most boards in our area redo, refresh that public open meeting training once a year. We talked about it a little bit. Just thought this would be a good time to ask you if you wanted to get trained on something, or if you'd like to have a refresh that training.
Well, I was thinking when we do get another person appointed to the board, unless Rich decides to stay, it'd probably be a good time to do that training again. And, you know, I don't know who that person may be, if they've had that training or not, but.
yeah, and you know, that is pretty consistent with the other boards that I'm on. We have that same MSU extension office come up and give that presentation. So, and once I agree that once the new tribal member comes on, then we should probably do that.
Okay.
So that primarily was limited to the open meeting law, I believe. So I don't know if that extension offers other types of training, you know?
Not really, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Vice Chairman, I can double check with that, and also, we're not limited to just that, you know, this is an opportunity for the board to tell me, or think about it and tell me at a next meeting. If you'd like to have some training in something else, I am gonna be working with your legal counsel to schedule you for an appeals and hearings training, so right now I'm counting 2 trainings, one time specific on the next appointment, or such, you know, at the appropriate time for membership, and then the other one is you know, do you want to stagger the training for appeals and hearings to wait for a new member to be appointed by the tribes, or would you like to get that training on the books now? Happy to do whatever the board would like.
Well, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so just gonna jump in on this real
Thanks,
quick
man.
and appreciate the you know, the idea of training, you know, I think that's always necessary. And then I think it could be tailored in a couple of different directions. One for the board as a whole, like the appeals and hearing training coming up, but also as I think about Rich coming onto the board, and you kind of, you know, slam new people with a lot of information, or you know, ideally we are. So in that regard, almost a new board orientation, that if we do have a new board member, we have a packet of information that we can give that person even before they come to their first meeting. You know, it has the water compact in it, has all the, you know, maybe it's a thumb drive of all the necessary reading material that board member is going to have to spool up on at some point in time. You know, that you can't read all of that overnight. There's a tremendous amount of information that we're supposed to know. But even having a checklist of everything that we are supposed to know would be helpful. And at least we know what we don't know. So anyway, long story short, I think there's kind of group board level training we could do, you know, all together, but then there are some individual things that we would, you know, hopefully could give someone like a new board member, you know, a packet of information that they could, you know, read at their leisure, so to speak.
I think that's a good point, and I think we kind of have something like that in process, and that there's, I don't know if you were at that meeting or not, but there's 3 binders being compiled for each board member that is going to include the unitary management ordinance, the compact, all of our resolutions, all of our policies. And there were 3 or 4 other things in that packet. Do you remember what they all are?
Mr. Chairman, board members, any of the policies that get developed will go in there. There's a few choice appendices to the compact that are specific to water rights that are needed to be understood here. We're working on developing a few other materials, like probably some water commission or training information, as this organization is responsible for the water commission, is also that type of thing. And we're open to any additional suggestions, travel information, run of the mill, you know, how to operate some open meeting, legal memos from legal counsel, that kind of thing. I like the idea of a thumb drive, so we will double this up as a digital product as well. Shane, thank you for that idea.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we kind of have that going on, but I think with a new member coming on, if something like that can be ready within the next month or something, that would be advantageous to be able to hand to them so that we can get up to speed, or at least have something to read to get up to speed. So,
If you will, Mr. Vice Chairman, where are we at with the things that we put together? James, on the like notebook front, they're sitting right there.
Yeah. Like, you know,
No, it's all right. What are the big pending items we got there?
we've got all of the legislature pieces in there, bylaws. You know, personnel policies there.
Right.
WP&P, so the
At last, we were instructed to hang on to it till the printouts for the appeals and hearings documents were done in there, and we just haven't got to it this week yet.
okay, so we're close.
Pretty close, yeah.
Okay.
And it's still open for other materials if somebody wants to of something, or as time goes by, if you run off your notebook, you decide you want something else in there, you can always have those looking for you at the next meeting or through mail or whatever.
All right, thank you. So I guess back to Rich's question about, or somebody's question about, do we want to wait to do that until the council appoints that person to have these other training items, or move ahead? I guess my thought would be, let's wait till the next, I would think that they'd be within a month of coming on
I
board.
would hope so, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think my take two.
okay, so that's what we'll do with that.
And Mr. Vice Chairman, just to make sure, the two real tangible training pieces that we have would be the hearings and appeals training and the open meeting training. And we'll still, of course, get those notebooks moved along. Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us on to board conference needs. What did you have in mind there?
Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, in trying to project your budget and everything, I just want to get an idea of, are we pretty static on the water law conference attendance? It seems like last time we had 2 folks who were interested in that. Are there other conferences that this board's interested in? I'm just trying to get that 2024 budget piece and planning, you know, it's, you know, moved along as much. I understand things change, but we try to project what the expectations are from the board, so I can do my best to try to set that marker down.
Okay. Georgia, did you have any other conferences you would be interested in attending?
Yeah, it seems like we had the water law, that was the option, right? That's the only one that's really on the horizon.
Yeah.
How was that one?
I didn't get to go, with my teaching schedule,
Yeah,
it's not
I
even,
thought about going to that one just as in my role with the tribes. I never made it either, but some of our staff did that work for us. I know Eric Cole did, and Amanda and some other staff, so they thought it was good.
yeah.
So, Rich, I did go in it remotely, and like any of those conferences, there were some things that were really interesting and pertinent, some things just we don't do.
Thank you, Ken.
Overall, did you think it was worthwhile?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I found it, I didn't go this year, but I did find in the past that it has some benefits to it. I guess that would be the one I would put on your list.
All right,
It's relatively.
I kind of had that one on there. And we got we've got 2 board members for sure interested. We got
Yeah, it's not even a possibility.
not a
for me.
possibility for another, okay?
Georgia, before you say that, you know, they offer it remotely now. And I found that very convenient and a good use of my time, as opposed to going to Helena for 2.5, 3 days. Just
Right, I think my conflict, that's a good point, Ken, thank you. I think my conflict is the breakout sessions that they offered last year were in contradiction with classes that I teach. So even doing it remotely wasn't a possibility. I could look at the schedule this year and let you know, but what other conferences are there that apply?
There is, that same organization that puts on the seminar group. They do have some, additional ones, like there's one that's like labor law and personnel that looked interesting.
if I may, the
Yes.
Montana Bar publishes all known conferences, and I could try to get a copy of that list and circulate it for everybody. The Montana Legal Bar.
I had just a thought. I don't want to segue the conversation though. Did you have something to add?
Well, I just was thinking as the sole member of the personnel committee. Would you have any interest in looking for some conference type training on personnel and labor laws and that type of thing?
I could take a look. Sure.
Thinking frankly that I would probably benefit from attending in tandem. If we found something that was,
Sure.
if there's certainly not a necessity, but.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll explore that a little bit more, and I'll do my best to report back to you, or feel free to do the same thing in that.
Well, I just had a thought, and may I just bring something up for discussion? Is that okay? When we're talking about training, we know we're going to be bringing on additional staff soon, hopefully. We know that we have a new tribal board member coming on, but I was just thinking, we've got a lot of opportunities for, open meeting law. A lot of our stuff is trying to align with the state that we do. I don't know, when we bring new staff on, if they're not from here, if they're from out of the area, what are we doing to help our staff understand perhaps reservation history or the history of this area and tribal use of water and tribal values of water? How do we balance that to make sure that the people that we hire and the people that sit on the board have that background? Just a thought.
A lot of times what we do with our new employees is, kind of bring them around the different programs within the tribal government system to kind of introduce them as we can. This depends on where they work or what they're doing. At least our department does that. Or we give them a book on the history of what is that, like dams and timber and I don't know. You guys have probably seen that book that SKC Press put out. I don't know if you've read it. Kind of gives a history of the irrigation system. In here and how we were the first ones to actually create the irrigation system here, and the government just kind of piggybacked on what we already did and then built reservoirs created. It's pretty cool.
That's good information to know. And I think if you look at, it's just been my experience, I encounter so many people that have either lived here a long time or they've moved here and they don't know they're on a reservation, or they don't bother to look into the fact that there's a history of people that have been here for thousands of years. I don't know. It just seems like these are some things you would need to be aware of sitting on this board or being hired by this office. And so that's the segue I was going down, but I just think that helps you work in this office a little better. respects the place where you're working anyway. That's just my 2 cents. Do with that as you will, but
No, it'd be good to have something like that available. Could include that in the same packet of information that's being pulled together.
I mean, I know, Ethan, you know Rob McDonald. And he's a wealth of knowledge. You
Oh,
can get
yeah.
anything you need. You know Seth, but Seth is more into doing stuff.
Yeah.
Seth is a verb.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I can have Rob get a hold of you guys and just
Yeah,
we can provide the books. You know, and I'm not saying it's accurate in some aspects, but it's a book, I mean, for God's sakes.
yeah, I think it'd be great. Definitely. James?
Haley had her hand up.
Oh, okay, Haley.
Hey, so I did forward to Ethan, a really good, well, I think it's gonna be a really good conference on employment and labor law, coming up in March. So I did forward the link over, you should have it. Some really good presentations lined up for that. One in particular dealing with employee handbooks. So might be a good one to go to. And then the other piece on, more so kind of like the detail specific, like topics that pertain to Montana. In particular, like the water law component and also the tribal law component. I have a couple different, documents that I've created before for different presentations that I could mold, together. That could help provide some background into those 2 specific areas, and of course would love to have input like from CSKT on that too. But if the board desires that as well, I do have that available.
Okay, thank you, Haley. Awesome. Yeah, it's forward things like that onto Ethan, definitely.
And thank you, Haley, that's the conference that I was trying to remember the name of, so appreciate it.
I just got off the Teams with Rob, he said he'd get you 5 copies of them.
Outstanding.
Okay, I guess the only other idea I had on this, as far as other conference needs go, I do know, when we were contracted with associated employers, early on, somehow I got on their mailing list, so I keep getting announcements from them, and they do provide some pretty good training sessions, so I can forward those on to, or we can just contact them, see what their curriculum is. Okay, other board business.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Vice Chairman, I do know that there's a tribal relations training that the governor's office of Indian Affairs puts on, and I was trying to do my best to respond to that. It's working effectively with tribal governments, and so I can find out a little more information about that. If you would like, I've never attended that portion of the it's
Okay. Worth checking into that. Jen, any other thoughts on training? Conference needs?
No,
Okay. Guess that takes us to 3.6, other board business. Did you have something on that, Ethan?
Oh, those are just your opportunity to, it's kind of an ongoing item under.
I don't see anybody asking for anything there, so we'll move on to the water engineer updates. Water rights.
Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, I have a pretty brief section for you today. What I do have for you is just, the standard updates that we have. These are through December numbers, applications received and managed. This document right here. Got that one for you, Rich? Yep. And, what we did notice is, between June and December, we saw about as many or more applications. We saw all of 2023, between June and December of 2022. 206 applications came through, whereas in all of 23, 199 of the domestic allowances. So we thought that was interesting, show that initial slug of applications that came through.
Any questions for Ethan on the water rights summary?
Not a question. I appreciate all the hard work the office is doing.
Yeah.
But James did put this summary together for you.
Good job, James. Good job. All right, we will move on to budget updates.
Christie's in the other room, Mr. Vice Chairman, but this is your standard monthly budget. Or it shows you some of our expenses stylized out, so. No real surprises here, but we do like to provide this to you. This is a format that the board had appreciated in the past, so we are always looking to improve things on our monthly budget report.
Any questions? Ken, do you have any questions on the budget?
No,
Okay, so I guess I have one comment. This is okay, but it doesn't tell me where we stand relative to our overall budget. And I think I had forwarded you a copy of what the Flathead County Solid Waste District uses, where they have it itemized by each of their major categories, what the monthly expenses are, what the annual budget is, and there was half a dozen columns that went through that, because it's very easy then to look at that and see where your budget is relative to the overall budget. And so I would like to see you transition from this to that, so that we have a better feel for where we stand overall.
Think what Roger's saying is like percentage of budget spent to date. I know what you're talking about. And I don't know if you guys utilize an accountant that can do that for you. Because I'm not an accountant. You know, and if we're asking Ethan to do that, it's a little difficult for people like us to do.
For what it's worth, I embarked on that and made significant process, progress towards getting that moving forward. I'm still waiting on the reports that I need from the accountant to get that buttoned up, and I do anticipate having it done by the end of this month. Hopefully, I've got jumping ahead a little bit on the agenda, but I have hoping to get you to engage in a January 23rd meeting, and I'm hoping to buy, you know, absent any other major assignments today. Hopefully we'll have gotten that sorted out.
Seems like you had a pretty good start at it. You presented something about a month ago that had a
Budget.
yeah, had a summary on it. Yeah, kind of a line item breakdown. That was a good start. So if you could just meld those two together, I think you could get there.
Yeah, one of the difficult times that I'm having, Mr. Vice Chairman, is if you look on the second page of this budget report, the information we get currently is kind of. It's a little nebulous as to associating these payroll expenses. And that is what I'm trying to get resolved. It's, as that would be fundamental to giving a better description on how the salary piece is going, plays out. The other thing is I'm getting everything retimed to calendar year schedule, and it's getting there.
Well, should we maybe contract that out? You think?
I don't think so, but if I doesn't materialize, I can try to contract it out.
Yeah.
We're so close, like I said, that document that you saw that has the 2024 projection is, say 85% of that.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll be waiting with bated breath.
Well, I guess the good news that I'm seeing today is, we now have 2 years of record on what these processing fees are generating, and we know that that's going to double this year, correct? With the change, with the latest House bill, right? That was increasing the permit fees. So that's an encouraging thing to see, especially when we think about that budget. I don't even know what the correct word is. When we get the money allocated by the state and the tribes, and then that gap period before that allocation. So, yeah, it's good to see these numbers.
Yeah.
Short answer. It's good to see that. So.
Okay. Ken, did you have any comments?
No,
Right, thank you. Right, with that, I guess we are at item 5, continue the water policy procedures working session. So maybe this would be a good time to take a little break.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
So we can reconvene in 15 minutes, say. 5 after 3.
Sounds good. So Eden, did Haley answer your question?
Just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We're back for the second half of the Flathead Reservation Water Management Board meeting on January 16th, 2024. We will continue with the water policy and procedures working session. With that, I guess, Ethan, you want to tell us where we left off and where to pick up?
Sure, Mr. Vice Chairman, board members. James is opening up our file for us and has volunteered himself to drive and edit. Thank you, James.
Do you mind if I close the lid? on these?
I would, and thank you, actually, for that reminder. I did just get this out to show you all the board members. Here's your flow meter. Is here.
Yay.
So if you'd like to look at it or never seen a flow meter, feel free. There it is. Is it in a way in the closed position?
Oh, no, not at all. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, we have done a couple of updates to the draft, namely, we have a table in here. You can scroll down, Mr. Briggs, to the table. And this table now just reflects the new fees, that you enacted at the last meeting on all of the different forms. And so you'll see the form, version on the far right of 2-1, that's for all of the updated forms, and now we just have the actual application fees. With the notes that the board members had discussed, what we see in there. Otherwise, we have been working on these drafts. We've gone through the earlier section is just kind of a general overview. And the board members were working their way through the development domestic allowance section, which includes some other items about all of the domestic allowances. And so, of course, we stand at whatever progress you'd like to tackle, but certainly there may be some appeal to tackling the harder section. Getting back into that, we've left it a little bit through that section where we make clarifications. If you go down, James, to the section on domestic allowances. And so you work through a few of these items. We did capture your thoughts about existing wells drilled after June of 2001. Existing wells, retired uses. Some discussion of priority dates. Is there, we went, I do believe, didn't we go through the other buildings defined? Where that's really an effort to capture the spot where the board had offered previous clarification about some of these things. We're trying to get that moved along. We get through maximum number of connections. Okay. Development, domestic allowance, number of connections. Yes, this is, I do believe this is where we stopped.
I think we got through this section. Because we decided to leave in this exemplary thing. And that was, I believe, where we stopped at the end of this section.
Okay.
So I think we're on 13. Inclusion of existing uses. Is that consistent with everybody else's recollection?
Yes.
Vice Chairman, is that where you'd like to pick up today?
Well, we heard from one consultant in public comment, and I got text from other consultants asking where we're at on our domestic development analysis. So I would like us to get through that so that we can get something going here. So if this is part of that, then this is definitely where we're going to keep doing it.
Yes, this is part of that.
All right, Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, sub 13 here, inclusion of existing uses. This was highlighted as something that the board needs to really consider, figure out what they want to do or propose in the public sector on how to handle the inclusion of existing uses. in relation to new applications for domestic allowances, would an existing exception to a permit, it's located on the same parcel, affiliated ownership, should that influence whether or not an action is determined to be a development, and whether or not or should it help to determine the extent of the development. In other words, should those hookups be included in the metrics of determining number of bedrooms, determining, because as a reminder, if there's 3 individual domestic allowances on affiliated ownership, up to 4 on an affiliated ownership, they're good to go as under the banner of separate individual domestic allowance. It's not being considered to be a development domestic allowance because that number is presumably less than the 10 acre foot threshold. Then once you hit a 5th proposed dwelling or connection, then you get thrown into this category of a development domestic allowance, so long as you're not considered a permit. Now, in this situation, the question is, does a 602 that's out there on that same parcel count as one of the up to 4 connections? Does that existing 602 count for the maximum allowable number of bedrooms? That's what we're trying to put in here for the question for the board members. I hope that helps.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question.
Sure, man.
Where did this language come from? Is this right out of the ordinance, or is this something that we've put together? We, me, and the office engineer.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Pitt, if you'll permit. In contrast to our previous document where I tried to highlight things that were right out of the ordinance, this highlighting is to signify that it's an important determination, and this is from the Office of the Water Engineer, and a few different minds have gone into its drafting. I can't remember everybody who's participated, but it is there for you to modify or adjust as you think is will best serve water administration.
So, Mr. Chairman, this language does trouble me a bit. Haley's still on, she can disagree with me, of course. What it does arguably is takes away a party's right under the ordinance and the compact by a decision by the board.
Oh.
And I'm not really uncomfortable with it, but I could see why this would raise eyebrows.
Well, I guess I kind of agree with you. And from reading this, my understanding is that if somebody already had an existing water rights certificate, and it was for 20 gallons a minute and 10 acre feet already, they could not get another water right then, according to this language. Because, well, they could get a flow rate of 15 gallons a minute, but they wouldn't get any more volume. And so to me, I don't know how we can incorporate an existing certificate and weigh that against something new that we're gonna issue. I think we're kind of double charging that individual then. I guess that's my read on it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, I think in certain circumstances, that could be the case. Yes, and that those existing exceptions to a permit would limit you, similar to if an applicant had come in after the effective date and received a 10-acre-foot development domestic allowance on that parcel already, they couldn't put another one there. And so the timing is a unique problem. Off of the reservation, DNRC's combined appropriations would kick in. On the reservation, it's uncertain what would
Yeah, we don't
occur.
have a combined appropriation under our ordinance or under the compact. So. And I think Haley, aren't we required to honor existing water rights?
Yeah, existing uses are supposed to be considered under the ordinance.
As a valid water right?
Yep.
So I don't, yeah, so what are your thoughts on this?
I think I would have to probably take a closer look specifically, and I'm trying to pull up. My internet is unfortunately being pretty slow here today. Trying to pull up my notes on this from before. So let me see if I can pull that up. I understand where the comments are coming from, so.
Your comments on this, Mr. Craig's are visible. On this. Okay. Just want to make sure you weren't hiding anything on the side. And Mr. Vice Chairman and board members, not trying to defend or refute the language, but we would still be recognizing those previous water rights as legitimate uses of water. That's if the language seems to do something other than that, we need to get that adjusted.
I guess that's where I'm coming from. The way I read this is that we're kind of usurping that existing certificate to include in a new certificate.
Well, it would go towards the count. So similar, like if you apply for a new water right for 10 acres of irrigation, but there was already an existing water right for 10 acres of irrigation on that same parcel out of the exact same source. We would we wouldn't be likely to issue that because it would be duplicative to an existing right. And so in that situation, it's the very recognition of the existing right that would cause that determination. This is a little different in that if you had a water right, and these are for active and issued water rights, that was again an exception to the permit. This just would count towards, it doesn't, there's nothing in here that would say that you can't have your 602 that you got for the effective date. But if you did have one, it would potentially be considered towards the total number of permit exceptions you could have on your parcel. And, for what it's worth, I'll just keep offering just thoughts. If you were a senior water right holder and were concerned about the number of permanent exceptions going in around you and not having an opportunity to be noticed or object to any of them, you know, this language might seem, advantageous. If you are, somebody trying to get some additional housing in without having to, you know, go through the permit process, you know, this could be more of a detriment. So it kind of depends on which emphasis we're at in the water use of it.
And I guess I just don't see how we can do that, to be honest. I just don't see how we can take somebody's existing water right and tell them they can't have any more water on a new permit if they're already, you know, and this wouldn't be necessarily from the same source. If they were to drill another well, they could still do that. So I just can't see how we can, I forget, I don't know what the legal term is, but apply an existing water right to a new water right.
And so for what it's worth, this only affects the allowances, not an opportunity to apply for a permit.
Right,
Okay,
but it's the
sorry.
same thing, same thing. Haley, have you had a chance to look at this?
Yeah, so Ethan, I guess just to clarify, 'cause I have a couple notes on my own sheet here, but so this is essentially getting at existing rights within like a project area to be accounted for.
Yeah, so, you know, where the determination, happens for those parcels are the ones that are contiguous or affiliated, that's defined, in the ordinance. And whether or not, you know, this would, whether those existing exceptions would be a factor in the total exceptions allowed. Did I answer your question?
I think so. And if that's the case, I do have on here that that's pretty on par with how DNRC has looked at existing uses, in particular with dealing with like a predetermination for wells. So that is something that is considered and is typical with the state's process. I just don't know if the wording is getting at that.
I'm wondering if maybe we should have, this is kind of a real critical one. Have you and John take a look at this and give us your version of it, maybe.
This is Ken. Can I add a comment?
Sure.
I could see somebody arguing some sort of a taking here.
That's exactly what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, so I guess to you know, to avoid that, because I do think, you know, Ken, that is a real issue. Ethan, was that what I just restated, was that essentially what this subsection is getting at? Like just that it is the accounting of existing use for the purpose of you know, just accounting for all the rights within the project area. Is that what that's getting at?
It would only pertain to, exceptions to a permit, not to water rights issued as a permit.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think I have an idea of where this is supposed to be going or what the intention is. And so, yeah, for sure, I can take a look at this and maybe put a little bit more spin to it, with that, as I do think it is more so just the language.
The last sentence gives me a little pause too, where it talks about 5 bedrooms, because we previously in the last meeting said those number of bedrooms were just an example. They're not a metric. So I wonder if that last sentence should even be in there.
I mean, Haley, they're gonna look at this, right? And then come back with something. That hopefully the board can be amenable to.
Yeah, because with the previous section, we just went with a maximum of 10 acre-feet per year and 45 gallons a minute as our standards. So we, these were various examples of how you can come up with that 10 acre-feet, but not, it wasn't set. It was flexible through the applicant. All right, I guess so. Haley, we'll have you and John maybe take a read at this.
Yep, yeah, we can definitely do that.
All right. Maximum number of wells. You want to give us your thoughts on this, Ethan?
Sorry, Mr. Vice Chairman, board members, I thought you were just reading it. Maximum number of wells, this is just trying to pin down how many, obviously we talked about it before, how many wells is too many. This takes a run at solving. It does make a clarification that an individual shared domestic allowance restricted to 1 well, that's right out of the ordinance, so you don't need to worry yourself about sub A. Sub B is different beast. There's not good clarification from the ordinance about the development domestic allowances. Here in this case, we had discussed in different technical teams and other places that too many wells yields not enough flow rate spread, amongst the wells. There's issues of whether or not the volume can be appropriately measured. What had happened here is try to split the difference and set restriction of 3 total wells with a sub C that designates its water supply is limited and requires something like filtration value or alternative to A or B above with the applicant and provide justification. For the meeting.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, Ken.
So the three, that's kind of just a subjective number that you and your technical staff decided on. What if I want 4 wells? And I can somehow, I'm not sure the science, Roger could fill that in. And I could say there's an approach that's not going to make any difference in this one occasion. And I'm not belittling you by any means. I'm just trying to understand where the number 3 actually came from.
If you take 35 gallons per minute and divide it by 3, it's 11.67 gallons per minute,
Okay,
which seemed like a somewhat appropriate lower flow rate.
thank you.
You could overcome low flow rates with cisterns. Just to offer other considerations, because you could also, a lot of people aren't really looking for 11.6 gallons per minute for their house. That they're wanting something a little higher, 15. So that's why it's 3.
So they could
with
come,
it out.
they could come in and talk to the engineer, and the engineer said, okay, fine, in this one situation, you can have 4.
That's what we were, that's a suggestion here. Yep.
So then if we're going to do that, which I think is okay, my opinion, then they should have some reference to unless agreed to by the engineer or something like that.
It says, well, it's intended to say like must provide justification for the need and get OE approval in advance under sub C. And you're saying that we should add in
Okay,
writing?
okay. No.
Okay. All right. But however, we need to improve that.
But here's my problem with C. It says if water supply is limited and requires an infiltration gallery, then you need to come to the OE approval. What if the water is just limited?
Well, let's strike and requires an infiltration gallery and say, and how about and requires alternative to A or B above?
Well, yeah, I like that. If that meets your needs.
Is that gonna
Yeah,
change order and? Like, oh yeah, here, just keep that in. Jim, does that work, Ken?
it works for me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't meet your needs.
I can work with this if the overall idea is something that the board supports.
So the other thing to keep in mind with the domestic development is those sources have to be metered. So there'll be some record of what's actually used there, whereas individual and shared domestic allowances aren't needed.
That's true, and just for what it's worth, a couple of additional things. The sub C does here is applied to both A and B. So whether or not that's okay, something to consider. Also, we do have designs on charging an additional fee for additional wells. And we also may modify, if we have intentions on charging a fee for reviewing and inspecting and approving you know, a water measuring device. Which would be required for sub B and possibly sub C.
So is one or A in there just as kind of a? Yes, is this whole section is for both individual share, it's for all three, right? This whole section.
That is the intention with A being specific to individual and share, B being specific to development domestic allowances, and then C being the exception to both A and B. You know, under special circumstance.
Yeah.
And that was the thinking. You'd be surprised how many people ask us the total number of wells that they could put in. It's actually a pretty regular question.
I guess I'm okay with those revisions.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Yep, I'm good.
all right, we'll move on.
And Mr. Frakes, do you remember the fee off the top of your head?
It's 125 for an additional well, and the form number is 6 WPF.
So we could change the form number in here. This was before we did the table update.
Now, this is kind of a question I have. What is a developed domestic allowance?
Sure.
Is that,
So, if you will, there's, anything that will be for a house or a business, that doesn't require a permit on the reservation is termed a domestic allowance. And so that includes 3 subcategories of domestic allowances. The first one, most common one, is an individual domestic allowance. So that's like put in a house and a well. I might have a shop, I might have an ADU or a mother-in-law's place, but it's all within the same parcel and somewhat close in proximity. Second bit is a shared well. In the shared well, you clearly have 2 different connections that may or may not be separated by property line, but you must include a shared well agreement if you're going to have a shared well. Now, both of those first 2 types are limited to 2.4 acre feet per year. It's a small amount of water. And then you can do within a parcel up to 4 individual domestic allowances. You know, up to 4 shared wells, because they're all maxing out at 2.4 acre feet. You're below this 10 acre foot threshold. As soon as you hit another one, you hit a 5th individual. Now you're looking at what we would call this domestic development allowance. Okay, and that is bumps your ability to an annual volume up from 2.4 acre feet to a maximum of 10 acre feet, but it simultaneously requires you now to jump through a certain set of other hoops, one of which, and it's one of the rare instances in the ordinance where there is a mandatory water measurement. So if you want to come in, you want to put in more than 4 individual houses on a well, you're gonna, you know, be looking for the development domestic allowance. And if you exceed 10 acre feet, you got to get a permit, which is a much harder process to go through that requires public notice so that everybody knows that you're applying for the water right. The domestic allowances, all 3 of those, they don't have a specific mailing that goes out to the adjacent water users that notices them that Bob over there is putting in a new well. If he, goes for a permit, that does happen. So that gives people objection criteria. There's no criteria for objecting to an allowance. Does that help? Yeah, okay, yeah, that was perfect.
I have a question or just a comment. I was thinking back, our first and only public comment we got today was from Jacob Feisner, and he asked the question, is there a predetermination process rather than applying for a well permit? Would that be language we would need to consider putting in our policies and procedures on this section? If somebody is in this situation, and it can get expensive, right, to go through all of this. I don't know what's involved in a predetermination. I don't know what encumbrance that would put on you and your staff. Do you want to speak to that?
I'm happy to. Is that all right? Or did you want to
Yeah,
speak to
no.
it? Yeah, okay. So a predetermination off of the reservation, and for a while here on the reservation before the compact was settled, what DNRC would do, because they, unlike our office, when you go put a 602, you call an exception to a permit, out there, you don't come in advance and get an AOK. Typically, those, when you file them, it's a notice of completion. Like everything's all in. Here's to let you know, I have a well hooked up to this. And DNRC looks and does a double check to make sure that they don't think that you're using more than 10 acre feet. They also do double check whether or not you have other exceptions on the property to see if that combined amount is in excess of this annual. Frankly, it's a very complicated set of how that happens. And we'd have to get somebody from the NRC and do a better job just to explain how they look at that for different parcels. Now, sometimes, however, they've got a subdivision they'd like to get through, and they're intending to use these exceptions. So what they'll get in advance of filing a notice of completion after they put it to use is this predetermination letter. Predetermination letter is where they say, hey, we've got this DEQ subdivision plan. We want to use exceptions to permit in this way. We plan to hook up X, Y, and Z, including the number of houses. Here's the proposed lot layout, everything. And then DNRC evaluates that to determine whether or not that would fit under the permit exception. It's 10 acre foot amount, this 35 gallon per minute flow rate cap. And so here on the reservation, we have something really similar to that, but it's a little more hard and fast because all of the allowances go through a pre-evaluation.
Okay.
Before you even go out and develop it. We did set up some exceptions to, applying for existing uses that predate the June 1st, 2022 date. And anyway, I could get sidetracked with that, but generally somebody's gonna put something new. We would evaluate it in advance and then give them authorization to do their development. And we would write down how many houses they can put on there, what their maximum yard size is, whether or not they got stock tanks in stock, and the main elements of their water use. So that would give somebody what they would need for a predetermination, but the downside of that is that it also starts this clock ticking, because when we issue that authorization, we have in the ordinance, it's a fixed amount of time for getting the well drilled, a year. Okay, we do have extension forms that we've been allowing. These policies include clarification that you have an additional year after that 1 year drilling date to build your house and get it hooked up. But because at the end of the day, you get this pre-approval, you're still required to file Form B. A is the one that has fees, B, 0 fees. B is when everything's supposed to be done.
So there's no need for additional language. This is something that's already done in-house.
Well, haven't we developed a predetermination format and process?
No, we have, got a form that is still draft, which is for, a verification of existing water rights. But our predetermination, the DEQ has accepted our, Part A approvals as predetermination. However, what Jacob was talking about with the deadline, that is real, and we're caught in a little bit of a rock and a hard spot because on one hand, we want to be able to get our authorizations out the door and meet the timelines, but on the other hand, we don't want to like reserve water. And so when an authorization goes out the door, there's no telling what else might happen on that landscape within, between Part A and Part B. Somebody might file for a controlled groundwater management area. So, some other events might happen in that area. So, anyway, I hope that helps. But
It does, thank you.
Jacob's noticing that there is that timeline for drilling a well, which is different than what a predetermination is. In the case of people who got predeterminations on the reservation before the effective date, their predeterminations pretty much expired at the effective date because the forward moving water right administration didn't recognize DNRC's predetermination standards because those weren't existing water rights. They were a predetermination. There was a lot of them.
Interesting.
Some of the folks that you've seen in here talking about development domestic allowances are the people that got caught in this crossover where they very well may have had a predetermination from DNRC to build this thing out in a certain way, move their project a certain amount, but not past,
That date.
and then.
So now they start over.
The effective date occurred and it created a jurisdictional shift. And I hope that helps too.
Yeah, thank you.
So does our verification process then basically serve as a predetermination?
No, the verification is for an existing water right that's already been put to use. A predetermination would be equivalent to our pre-approval. Except that, I don't know that the NRC has an expiration date for its predeterminations. That would be something I got in my notes here to ask, is whether or not those predeterminations expire. I think most of them do include some disclaimer language, and they all did include disclaimer language about the compact when they were issued by the NRC. When it's not, I said issued, but it's really not an issuance. It's a letter of predetermination, which is something less than an issuance.
So maybe I'm asking the dumb question again, but if this is water policy and procedures, do we need to explain that in here? Or no?
I don't think we need to. I mean, that would be useful to have an FAQ after the policies are set.
Okay.
Again, though, that's just in my head, and so I serve in your direction. Typically like the administrative rules, which is what this is intended to be equivalent to. Rather than like meat and potatoes are like, these are just the rules. But then DNRC tries to, or other agencies try to, after the fact, make a more cohesive document explaining
More detail.
more detail, but also more understandable.
Okay.
So that you didn't have to you know, be sitting here at this board to understand what's going on. You could just read a summary and that'll help you out. Or just kind of talk to us.
Okay.
Well, this is Ken, I got a thought for me. Jake seemed to think it was pretty important that we have something like that. And I'm wondering about us simply not really addressing it in writing. Or in some form or fashion, why it's feasible or why it's not. And I'm sensing that there's others that probably share Jake's concern or question there. I mean, is the board satisfied just with us discussing it and saying no and moving on? Or do you want something more?
So I guess the thing that I wrote down when Jacob spoke was, do we have a predetermined, is there a predetermination process? Are we gonna have a predetermination process?
Exactly.
So what is the answer to that, I guess?
Well, it sounds like we're leaning no, but I'm with you. I did not get a clear answer.
But presently, we don't have something that says what you could potentially develop on an allowance without actually applying for the allowance. And so we don't have that. We do have the water right verification letter. I'm happy to circle back with Jacob and discuss that, and we can even put into writing, if you would like, answers to those questions. All you gotta do is tell me to do it.
I would just I would just like something more than just a discussion.
Well, I think, yeah, I think we need to have a product. We're gonna, first we were gonna leave it, as I recall, first we were gonna let my recommendation was to let the DNRC keep doing it. For state-based water rights. But then it was decided, I guess, that we should have our own process or do it internally. So I guess seems like we need to have that process done so that we can. There's gonna be a few of these for sure. So. And I thought we had started down that road. The predetermination process.
Active markets. But not further. And markets.
We have a pre-approval process. It's so similar. And it has successfully been used to appease DPQ's requirements.
Okay.
The one difference is, you know, less explanation. And the timeline really well.
Yeah, I don't see that as a problem. I mean, if the applicant knows that, then that's they have to deal with that, so. But. I guess that's what so the pre-approval process essentially serves as a predetermination process.
Yes, and then we also have the pending water right verification. For if you have an existing water right, that's gonna be part of your package, and all of this was very intentionally woven together to get people through subdivision, you know, to provide pieces. But that said, I'm happy with it.
But that's what I thought, but you just told me verification does not serve as a predetermination. I wrote that down.
Verification is different than predetermination.
But you just said that it would work 2 minutes ago, so I'm missing something here.
I'm confused.
I don't understand why, first, what was it, the other process you just mentioned too, so can a person come in and have us do essentially an evaluation if their existing water right is valid and usable? Is that what?
We're close. You have to approve that process. You have seen the draft and you wanted to
That's what.
get this, as part of the package for this, development domestic plans, which I thought was a reasonable and prudent approach, by the way. So, just to be clear, so we have drafted it. We can sculpt that. That is for those existing. Which is why it's got that word verification instead of predetermination.
So that will then work for the predetermination. Okay. So,
And furthermore, we have that extension, timeline extensions.
yeah,
So if you need a little, more time, there is that option, or you can always withdraw and reply.
I thought the question he wasn't asking, or that was implied, and maybe I'm wrong, because this is not my bailiwick, but I think if he's representing this for a homeowner or a developer, he doesn't want to pay a big fine or a permit fee and then not have it go through, correct? Am I misunderstanding that? So if he pays the fee for the permit, but does not have confidence that it will get approved, that's why you would want the predetermination, right?
That is, there's a lot to unpack in there.
I know, I'm
So,
not asking that very well.
Yeah,
Okay,
I-
never mind.
So first of all,
Strike
the word permit in this case is a little low, because
Yeah,
an application for domestic allowance, and I really am only separating that as permits or these larger water rights, so it just right there.
yeah, syntax.
But we don't, we will. Meet with people in advance and discuss it. And certainly now that the application fee's $250 instead of $125, it's maybe a harder deal to manage. But
Yeah, and if he's getting hired by a client, there's a fee associated with that. So I'm just thinking of all of the people involved in this. I'm sure he's wanting to protect, each person's investment as they go. So I'm just wondering how that works.
well,
So,
the way it worked for our office is that you guys have also protected your staff time in that you didn't really want us to work on anything unless we got application fees.
that's true.
So, we have a certain level of help that we'll do on the upfront side, but, trying to honor that direction, we do actually. At a certain point require you to apply before we'll start really putting, a lot of effort into it.
Well, I've sent this down a rabbit trail with that question. So, okay.
so we're close to having this verification form done, ready to go. Well,
It's like already, it's drafted. Yeah.
can we have it for the next meeting? That would be good, because that might explain some of this.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah.
That would be helpful to me.
So I guess getting back to 15 here, this essentially just notifies the applicant that we're going to pay an additional fee for each additional well. And I guess the only thing I had was I would change that adds to has. After the development domestic allowance, where it says adds.
Yeah.
Change that to has. And I would have left that $125 out
Yeah,
because
That'll change.
those fees might change, yeah.
yeah,
And you revert it back to 6D anyways, so that's good enough.
I have a comment, if I may.
Go far, Ken.
Is the very last part of that sentence really necessary, where it says, and is to compensate the OE for additional time? I mean, I think that's a given.
Yeah,
And I'm worried that if you don't have that same language every time you talk about a fee, it could be used against you.
so you want to strike it?
Strike it. That's my opinion.
Okay, are we good with that, the way it is?
I am.
Yes.
All right. We have concurrence, let's move on.
You gotta read that comment again, or you write it off just to. It seems like I tried to ask language, Haley to ask, what is the process to get the device approved? And what is the timing of approval? Okay. Thank you. And so this is the section on measuring devices. Each development domestic allowance, and just as a reminder, this doesn't apply to everybody listening, it not apply to individual or shared domestic allowances, only to the larger development domestic allowances. Must have an OE approved measuring device that continually measures total volume converted and time period of conversion that allows for monthly diverted volumes as well for all wells on the system. Okay, so that's to start things off with the like what the expectation is.
So with that right there, I've never seen a flow meter really break it down. It's just a cumulative number of total gallons that runs through it. I don't know how you're gonna break it out monthly. There's no way to do that unless the person goes and reads it.
Right.
There's no flow meter that would do
I
that.
think that that's what it allows for monthly diverted volumes. At some point, I think this actually had to be calculated. So after the word diverted, at the very end, the second diverted, you get, well, at the end of that, it's add to be calculated, for monthly diverted volumes, sorry, to be calculated. So it wouldn't necessarily automatically do it, but it would allow for it to be. And change it from calculated to measured. Or maybe you've got a better idea.
I calculates.
Right, calculated.
But couldn't they just put one flow meter on where all the wells are manifold together? Because all we're worried about is if they use 10 acre feet.
They wouldn't necessarily have to be manifold. So, and most of the people who want multiple wells, they want to space the wells out, you know, in different areas. But so this is intended to, you know, it's written ambiguous enough to where it applies to all wells on the system. So if they were manifold, that'd be fine. You know, you can just do 1 meter. Yeah, and we would theoretically work through that during the only phase.
Okay.
Right, so that this generally gets at the expectation, but we would still have a specific back and forth about how it's gonna be set up.
Okay. You got that.
Sub B is the requirement to report when you got form. Oh, didn't even any changes. Yeah, oh, we'll just switch on.
All right, sorry, switch gears a little bit. So this section talks about the reporting requirement. There's nothing real genius there, but there is this highlighted section, you know, and whether or not the board wants to have, you know, what happens if there's a failure to report.
That look okay to you, Ken?
Which one are we looking at?
B?
Yes.
Okay,
I take his highlighting off.
yeah.
Okay. So now we have, a section on like what you gotta do to get a measuring device approved. So, you gotta start off with providing the OE with complete information about the measuring device, or devices. Plans for the installation, identification of installers, identification of recording features, identification of plans to operate the devices. The information must be included in the 60DD, which is the application for development domestic allowance. The application must be pre-approved before installation. Pre-approval of any equipment does not provide insurance that the proposed equipment will work. There was a request to insert indemnification language here. I'm not a big writer of the indemnification language.
I have a question, just. What are we looking at in terms of a measuring device? Is there something out there that have been used other places?
Yeah, just an inline flow meter. It's called a volumizer or, volume meter.
Is that something we provide, or is there certain requirements that it has to have that it can't be tampered with, or? I don't know.
Yeah, so we have an initiation of a technical document that Roger has helped with that provides a list of acceptable devices.
Okay.
But not necessarily what do you call it, comprehensive, but ones that, if you're not sure what to buy this one maybe, or one of these.
So we're not gonna be requiring a certain device, but we're gonna give them options or things that they need to have or must have.
Right, but we would say like, no, you can't have you can't send a ping pong ball through periodically, or you can't, on a one-time basis, measure volume and then use your electric bill. We would have some standards. The electric bill thing or the electric meter thing does actually work on some irrigation pumps, but just as an aside, I'm not trying to throw that whole process.
We're looking at a domestic allowance, which is a well pump. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, not irrigation.
right. But because they have so many different outlets, the pressure of the system can be really variable as compared to a fixed irrigation system that's plugged into one set of sprinklers, So yeah, that's why you get sort of a little different performance, and that's an inline meter is pretty much the way to go.
So do you want some editorial comments on this?
Oh, absolutely, Ken.
So starting off, I would not say to get a measuring device approved. I would say for the OE to approve a measuring device. Okay.
My question is, has Haley looked at this? Can she help? Can they help with this? I mean,
And then-
She did look at it. She told me she wanted some additional language. And then I wrote it in a way to trigger Ken a little bit, but he's gonna fix it here.
okay, I'm gonna shut up.
The insert indemnity, let me go back. Pre-approval of any equipment does not provide, I would say, OE assurance that the proposed equipment will work correctly. And I do not see a need for indemnification there.
I don't either.
Oh, wait, hold on though. The pre-approval of any equipment does not provide. It's not the OE that's assured, the applicant.
By whom?
So we are the ones who would
Okay.
review and pre-approve the equipment, and I don't, yeah, okay.
Okay, I think that indemnification language needs to go. Oh, proposed equipment will work correctly. Or as proposed, how's that?
Good improvement.
That's kind of everything I had. Oh, that should be a small a, not a capital A. But there you go.
Can we add at the very end, part A, application approval?
Sure.
Okay.
And on 15D, that should be an on-site verification, not an and.
Yep, good catch. The next, yeah.
That's it for me.
And just to double check with our process here, board, like what I've been doing with these things is when we make these track changes, we usually go back and implement the track changes. So then the next time you see this document, what you've worked on here is, you know, is better reflected. Is that gonna work for everybody?
Well, I got one other, where it says right there, on-site verification. Why don't we just say inspection? Make it a little simpler.
It's on the first sentence of D. One more, go to delete on-site verification entirely and then instead put for inspection. All right, nice work.
Okay. 17, are we all good with 16? Okay. 17.
All right, 17, this is a direct response to some informal feedback. In that, you know, when we start to look at the maximum number of connections, which remind you would be up to 4 individual or shared domestic allowances, you know, or 1 development domestic allowance, that applying that standard to a 10-acre parcel as compared to applying it to a 200-acre parcel may not be fair. So this sets spacing sequence that would allow an applicant to apply for more than 1 development domestic allowance if they had a parcel that was large enough. And this really is, you know how earlier Ken was wondering about the 3 wells. The 40 acres is, that was that was a guess at parcel size, frankly. You know, it's not steeped in something other than the phrase 40 acres and a mule. So it's something folks just have to figure out if they want to have some sort of language like this. What that acre amount should be, if this language should stay. As of, you know, before, in the absence of something like this, if you had 120 acre parcel that was one contiguous parcel as of the effective date, you would be encumbered by the exact same restrictions as somebody on a 5 acre parcel. In terms of the maximum domestic allowances. So it's one for your puzzler, and it is tough one to figure out.
So in this one, we've lumped 60DF and 60DBF. So
60DF is the individual and shared domestic allowances, and 6DDF is the development domestic allowances.
oh, yes, all right. So what is this? So they can only drill one well on a 40 acre parcel? Is that what that's telling us?
This would say that if you, well, it's already saying if you've got a 40 acre parcel, you know, your total number, the ordinance, in the absence of clarification like this, you know, imposes a limit to the amount of domestic allowances that you could put in. This allows for multiple domestic allowances for larger parcels. I'm sorry for not doing a good job explaining it, but it may be a little on the complicated side.
And the 40 acre was just a number you developed.
Some people told me 20 acres was too small. I don't, we've already had this scenario where people with large parcels have come in. They want to put in some houses for family. We got like 160 acres, and we're like, yep, 4 wells.
I don't. Yeah, there was that other guy that came in over in Hot Springs last time. Seemed like he had developed up some 5 acre lots or something. And he wanted to put a well on each lot, so he couldn't do this.
He could do that for 4 of them,
That's what I'm saying.
you know? If his, I don't know how big his parcel is, if he owned 80 acres and he broke all that into, you know, he could do 8, you know, 1 for 10 acre. I mean, that's what it gets at, right? It's one individual allowance per 10 acre. Because our cutoff for individual allowances is 4. And
Our cutoff for individual allowances is what?
when you get 4 individual allowances, that's the most you can have for your development,
Right,
right? And so thinking that way, like, okay, what's the most houses I could put on a 40 acre parcel, which this is a proposed 40 acres is proposed here, so you guys can determine whether you want that, but that would allow a house for each 10 acre. You could cluster them also if you wanted to, but,
Yeah, so we don't know, I can't remember what that guy had brought in.
Yeah. But I mean, so the other caveat. You kind of alluded to was something about that, the effective date. How does that play into this?
cause it would be for, if you have parcels that are divided after the effective date, they'd still be looked at how they were at the effective date in terms of their affiliated ownerships or not, and that was presumably to prevent, folks from dividing the land dry. And then, and so like you can't, if you had for instance, you had 20 acre parcel on the effective date, and then you divided it up into 21 acre lots, and then when you sold each lot, each person applied for the individual domestic allowance, then you'd end up with 20 individual domestic allowances on a 20 acre plot that was at one time affiliated.
That's part of the compact.
No, that's just how yes, that's the way that I've read the ordinance, yeah.
I'd like to read that part of it too. Because maybe we should need to cite something in there about that part of it, so that it's got some reference to it.
Did Haley look at this? I'm assuming she did.
Haley's on.
Haley, did you look at this?
Yeah, I mean, our review of it was just to provide some, introductory comments, and then wait to see if there was anything further during these discussions. I know this was one that both Ethan and I wanted to solicit feedback, on in particular, so, Roger, you wanted a specific citation, though?
Well, I was just trying to understand how the compact language that limits subdivision of land. Can't imagine the compact doing that.
The compact doesn't limit subdivision, it just requires that subdivisions be considered affiliated when determining how many domestic allowances you allow. So there's no specific language about subdivision.
Am I correct? I've been trying to track the conversation and I've read this section several times. The way this is currently written, it does limit to some degree the amount of wells that get punched in the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. That's comforting to me. Groundwater is not an unlimited resource, especially in a climate uncertain future. So I am all for language that's going to prevent more straws in the ground, because you have to protect this for several generations, right? So I just want to make sure I'm tracking that correctly.
I agree.
This isn't unlimited.
Well, if anything, this language actually probably allows for slightly more straws to be punched in, but it does set that 40-acre parcel as a threshold in respect for larger land owners being put under a disproportionate burden of,
Okay.
but I don't, it is definitely something the board's got to grapple with, because what those numbers are. I can't tell you like the right number, and nothing in here would circumvent controlled groundwater areas or that kind of thing,
So the 40 acres, so that was the number you developed.
Develop is loose, but yeah, it was a starting spot for this discussion.
Yeah. Yes, my concern, I share your thoughts on safe groundwater yields. But then my thought too on this is, are we doing a taking like we could be doing with that other one? So I think we have to be cognizant of that. So I think I guess I'd like to hear from Ken also, if you had any comments on this one.
I do not.
Okay. It's my thoughts. Have we given you enough feedback, Haley, that you can take a look at this now?
Yeah, I think so. In particular though, what are we just more so concerned with the number, the 40 acre?
Yeah, I think that's one concern, and then where did the 160 acre parcel come from?
I think that's written there for an example. It's sometimes you guys like examples. We delete it if you want. Just try to. It seemed like that was the case.
Okay.
When I put in examples, that it was.
Yeah,
It's not always better than you just tell me what you want.
yes, good. Yeah. All right, so I think. Yeah, I think let's have legal review this a little more, the feedback we've given them.
So how would it be a taking?
You're telling somebody they can't subdivide their land.
Or are you just telling them there's a limit to how much they can subdivide?
Well, I guess, yeah, that's a legal interpretation.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll let BKBH give us some thoughts on that. Feedback on that. Annual volume then?
Yeah, okay, so this is a clarification about annual volume. And this does track the state take on exceptions to permit, and that those volume limits are diverted amounts. Not to be confused with consumed volume.
Ken, you have any thoughts, comments?
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, I have, I do have a thought. I'm a little, just from the grammatical point of view, we're just saying 60 DF and 6 DDF. For me, it'd be more comfortable if that kind of stuff says forms 6 ODF. Maybe I'm being overly picky, I don't know.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
I don't even think you're being overly picky. Form should be capitalized, and I think that you should say. Individual and shared domestic allowances, and then put form 60DF in parentheses. And then,
So would that need to go throughout the whole document
Yeah.
then?
yeah, I mean, if you like that layout.
Yeah, I had a very, very good technical writing instructor in school. So you're seeing a result of this.
Clarification is always good.
And
Oh,
James,
yeah, sometimes, sorry.
no, sorry, just to be a stickler too with Ken. Will you just put a comment right there too and just say, we just need to make sure that that's consistent throughout the entire document.
Yep.
That formatting style. Thank you.
In our office, we sometimes struggle between getting something in front of you and, having all the time to draft it as cautiously.
You know, James, I'm pretty sure one of the 7th levels of hell is having to edit publicly, you know, this is not easy, so. That's good job, it's not easy.
Yeah. Okay,
So this next one, I think needs a little bit more consideration. If this is written to be more of a maximum capacity, so if all of the wells are on simultaneously, this is like a design feature that it shouldn't exceed 35 GPM. If an applicant wanted to make the case that they maybe only use one well at a time or something to that effect, this puts some sideboards on that. And so I wanted you to make a determination as to whether or not those sideboards are appropriate for a maximum infrastructure kind of look, or if you wanted something different. I hope I explained that okay.
guess the only comments I have on that one are where it says cumulative or combined. I think that's kind of redundant. I just say combined, or either or. Yeah. And then I like what you said earlier, Ethan, is after it says operating simultaneously shall not exceed 35 gallons a minute. Any comments?
Not tonight.
Guess we're good with that one.
Did we lose you, Ken?
No, I'm here.
Okay, sorry to Just want to make sure. We're
My
talking-
my cell phone is chiming off the hook, so I had the volume off. Apparently, Costco has decided to replace churros with chocolate chip candies, and the world's going mad.
Oh, as soon as they hear it on this meeting, really.
Keep us posted.
Your carbohydrate public service announcement.
So, this has come up because we've had people want, like, out here's my house and my 0.7 acres, and I'd like to have, 45 head of cattle too. And so we had to,
Gee,
maybe we might need to make a few accommodations for, larger stock volumes. That's why this is here. So it would be something that we could cite to as a policy. But. Yeah. Yeah,
So
let's capitalize domestic allowances. Thank you.
Any thoughts, Georgia?
That looks good.
Rich, you good? I'm good.
That looks good to me.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, any comments on 21?
Nope.
No.
We're good on that? You left.
There's a comment, sorry. Yeah, what you said.
Well, I got a couple of editorial ones on this, I guess. I just, right, starting with front storage, I put storage facilities associated with any water system. Then enclosed, I'm not sure I like that word because it tells me that it's gotta have a lid on it, but a stock tank doesn't have a lid on it.
Or reservoir.
Or a reservoir, yeah. So, that's why.
We say domestic water storage,
Sure.
and then leave the controls.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
Facilities, the same as that, sure.
Well, if you're gonna say domestic water storage, you should probably say storage facilities associated with any domestic water system.
That's even better.
I'm good with.
you're okay? Ken, I guess you're
Yes.
okay with,
Yes.
right? Number 23.
I did have an editorial comment.
Go for it.
Down there it says, and other water uses that are unique. Could you say any other unique water uses?
Oh.
There.
I don't think so.
No, I just like throw it out there, like give me a plan.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm not going for that.
Yeah.
But I go back, let me go back to the text. So after engineer hydrologist, I put flow, make those plural. Apostrophe S, you know, just including engineers, hydrologists, specialists. So it's all consistent. No,
I think it apostrophe on a design specialist with that thing,
yeah. Yeah,
because it's an and, right?
right.
So.
Good. Yeah,
Good.
good. All right, we're done. Yeah. So we just need a couple of. Getting back to us from Haley on those two items. And I think we've got this covered. For now.
So it looks like the next meeting would be able to approve them.
Yeah. Looks like.
Yeah, there's some other sections we gotta go through, but I think we'll go faster.
Oh, I thought we were there. Okay,
Other sections, okay.
what do we have left to go back to, just so we wanted to read this in advance?
Sure, did you guys do the stop water at all? They started on stop.
Where is that one at?
It's right from the domestic. 22,
1-6.
some of it's redundant. You know, because we had to have the same language about the existing wells and what was drilled before June 1st. In this section. So that's easy. And I did already copy your edits that you've made to these sections into here. But Keep scrolling down for a second, would you, Jen? This is the same, automatic water is allowed, you guys all right with automatic waters? Keep scrolling down. We have, stock water, a more liberal approach to limitation of wells. There's no limitation. Because a lot of those wells are smaller wells. We embrace the DNRC animal unit calculations for the volume. And we have a requirement under 8 that you should think about. It's if stock water is sourced from a spring, a developed spring, then the point of diversion must be fenced to exclude stock.
So we'll just go over 116 next time.
It sounds like it. All right,
We're at,
or you can, yeah,
we're at 10 to 5 now,
you didn't, all right.
and we still got a couple of things, so. Well, we got it clear from here, that for some items, so that.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we wrap up the continued water policy and procedures working session. On to public comment. Is there any final public comment? Anyone on the internet would like to make public comment?
Jacob. It's a good name.
Jacob, you're on.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Yeah,
Please
first
state
of all,
your name again for the record.
yep, Jacob Feisner, with plan for approval, Polson, Montana. Thank you, first of all, for considering my thoughts. I appreciate that very much. Just a point back to the discussion. The two forms, the predetermination application with DNRC, the application for Form A that Ethan's office is using, they ask the very similar questions. They require the same information. So that part of the process is very similar. But you keyed in on the 2 points of the 2 concerns that I have, and that is cost and expiration date. And those are important because for 2 reasons. Primarily because a lot of times these projects don't get done within a year. I look for water availability right up front, and many times it takes a year to get through a subdivision process. And then they have to market it, they have to put in improvements, they have to do a lot of things before a well will ever be drilled. So it's a fair amount of money being spent for a permit that will likely never be used. And so it's a challenge to explain that to landowners and get them to be okay with it. So, I mean, if it is what it is, I understand that. Just wanted to express those thoughts. Wondering about an application. Will an application be forthcoming for the domestic development rights that we talked about today? So wondering about that. And I have several other questions that might be better, time might be better spent if I just came and talked with Ethan later this week regarding the amount of wells allowed for a domestic development. So anyway, thank you again for your time. I appreciate all you guys are doing.
Thanks, Jacob, for your comments and your interest, and we appreciate it. Okay, next meeting dates, I guess we need to see where we're at there.
I'm available all those days. Those work for me.
What's the date you guys are looking at? Sooner rather than later?
It's January 23rd, February 6th. These are all on Tuesdays, and February 27th.
You guys are looking at the 23rd?
I've got conflicts that day. I can do the 5th, the 6th of February.
And for what it's worth, at present, I'm trying to get all 3 of those days.
What days are we looking at then? Do we know yet?
Oh, sorry, Tuesday, January 23rd,
I'm available.
Tuesday, February 6th, Tuesday, February 27th.
So Ken said he's not available on the 6th. Is that right, Ken?
No, the 23rd.
Oh, the 23rd. Sorry.
I have not had a chance to touch base with the chairman. I will after this. Obviously, we'll try to see if we can make a quorum without if we needed to.
Just wondering if we can get what we just did done that day.
Right, that would be the intention, is to meet up on the 23rd. Button up the WP&P for public comment. By the way, the complaint procedures did go out. We posted that today. And so that is out for a 15-day public comment period. We need to do the same thing for the WP&P. And circle back on health insurance, if there is any to do, as like a couple of priority items, but let's see, does I guess there's January the 30th. That's also a Tuesday.
I can't hardly, I could do the 23rd remotely, but I can't be down here for it.
Okay.
So, but the 30th, I am available.
I'm available the 30th.
Am I?
Rich, do you have the 30th?
Yeah, I'm good. Any of those days? I'm just here locally, so that's pretty easy for me.
So 30th is doable.
I'm not traveling anywhere.
Not
this dang weather.
Just be advised, we may not show up here tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
5 inches of snow is a bit much.
Is it supposed to start in the morning or in the evening?
Tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah, so I just wanted you to know.
So we'll scratch the 23rd and go with the 30th.
And how about the 6th and February 6th, also Tuesday, February 27th.
I'm open to those things.
Ken, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking. I'd say tentative on the 27th.
I may have a conflict with the 30th. Hang on.
You might have a conflict on the 30th.
I'm in a meeting.
You told me all your Tuesdays were free.
I know, I lied to you. Yeah.
Board members, would you like me to circulate a poll? That would include the chairman. That includes 4 meeting dates and maybe some others. I would like to get a little longer term projection set on the books so that we can get some scheduling and some planning. It's tough on us to do the last minute switcheroos. So does that sound like an acceptable alternative to setting meeting dates right now, Mr. Vice Chairman?
Sure.
Okay,
Ethan,
yes,
in that, could you also include the February 20th date that I provided to you?
yeah, Haley, they wanted to wait until they got a tribal board appointee before that training. So, I'd like to set that on the books, but I don't know when we're gonna get the new appointee from the tribes.
Okay, that's fine.
Sure, I hadn't forgotten about it. And for us, we're good on either of those 2 days.
I think Clayton wasn't available that first one, the 13th. We were gonna, as I recall.
The 23rd.
Well, for the 2 dates that Haley threw out, or in her email.
Yeah, Clayton was not available the 13th, but he was the 20th, which is why I had suggested putting it on the books. But I did not know about waiting for the tribal appointee.
Just double checking, that's what I think you told me today, right?
Right.
Okay. And so, that was just from today here,
We may have an appointment by then, who knows?
And Ethan, I misspoke, the meeting did show up on my calendar.
oh, okay, good,
I was looking at it there today, apparently.
well, it happens when you lose a date and, to a holiday and, but I do get nervous when
No,
we're feeling like we're reaching out to folks and,
I thank you for the call. I was like, what? We have a meeting? Yeah, I'll be there.
all right.
We wouldn't have a quorum. Then, so.
Well, we had water issues at our main office,
Oh, no.
flooding.
That's what Dennis was telling me this morning.
They got it corrected.
That's good. Oh, man.
Okay, so you're gonna send out a polling on meeting dates. Anything else we discussed yet?
So for me, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Rich.
I'll second.
Then moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.